275 to 300 is a good number.
And that's about where we were at.
Yeah, we were right in there,
Yeah.
so, it's really good.
Good.
So,
They changed their,
yeah, we were just talking about that,
Mhm.
what was the, if there was a reason. He didn't say.
no, they
So,
don't have one.
Yeah.
Sean, do you have agendas and minutes?
I don't know.
I know that.
I know Clinton,
Well, I know
Chelsea
Sean
and
had,
Chris
they
on.
had, Ella had volleyball in the cities, cause Nicole was asking me about concessions. Doesn't matter, I know Sean's in the cities, but I don't know if he's out with that. They like travel for volleyball or something,
Who's in charge without,
but
who's in charge without Clint?
we don't have a vice president, vice chair, co-chair, vice chair.
You did last time.
Vice chair.
I did it last time.
Yeah, you did it last time.
Are we starting now?
We can if you want. Let's wait for Justin to get back.
That must be Sean. I'm in Sioux City, still volleyball tournament. No, that was, who's that, Clint? All my contacts, our email at work changed to Windows and I.
I have a little more on the pool
Sorry.
funding.
You're not stepping on my toes.
Situation.
Oh, from when we met the other day,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. We have to do some more final numbers, but Denise is working on it.
okay.
'Cause when I saw it, it wasn't quite adding up. They didn't want to freak you out.
Well, now you have to tell me that. You can't say that.
The first, so last year's budget, the
Yeah.
budget for the first one. So there's 35,000 that came out last year. Plus we had to make our first payment in June.
Okay,
So it looks like there's 10,000 left in the pool fund.
okay.
And in reality, it's about 77.
So in reality, you're saying that that's actually there?
It's, well,
It will be
yes,
there?
the cash
You
is
just have
available.
to clear the time, the day? You have to go past a certain day or something?
No, the cash is available. It's just accounting stuff.
Now, is that the 50 fundraise plus the leftover?
What was remaining? There wasn't much left, if I remember right.
After
'Cause
like
we had
electrical and all that stuff?
demolition was 40 and change,
43.
10,000 for the electric. So, yeah. Anyway,
Okay. I was talking to Carlos about, well, I can talk about it. Should we start?
Yep.
I don't know what do I do, call to order, just the gavel thing. I call this meeting to order. It's honorary Clinton Johnson. Are there any additions to or approval of the agenda? Did everybody look at the agenda, and does it look okay? Okay. Do I have a motion to pass the agenda with
I'll
no
motion.
changes?
I'll motion. I'll second.
A motion and a second. Visitors to be heard, there are no visitors.
we have a new addition.
Well, is that down here though? I don't wanna go out of the official order.
If you haven't had a chance to meet
Is
Justin
Justin
yet,
a visitor?
Justin is here.
I'll stand up and introduce myself. I'm Justin Myers. Nice to meet you all. I'm from Yankton, South Dakota. I went to school at the University of South Dakota and I studied sport management. I have over 5 years of Parks and Recreation experience, Yankton, Vermillion, and the other side of the river, Rapid City. And I'm very forward to move along with the community of Lennox, and I see a lot of potential in the town. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. How do I spell your last name?
MEYERS.
And then Justin is. Just.
Yeah.
Like Justin. Okay.
So
Yeah, I know.
Justin.
You really
started-
don't. I was thinking it could be spelled a
It could
number
be
of
all
ways
sorts
now.
of different ways.
You started on Monday
Yeah.
last week, right? So it's been about a week.
And we,
Still coming back, haven't left yet.
I haven't left yet.
So minutes, we approved the agenda first. Now do we approve the minutes?
I have a change to the
Okay.
minutes. The soccer program, it says
Oh,
the cost is
yes.
$40, but it's actually 30.
I think at that time when we talked about it, it was 40.
No, cause we were either do 25 or 30.
Okay.
Cause 40
That's-
is for the fall, cause we get a ball.
But this is for the.
This is for camp though.
Oh, for the camp. Oh, I'm sorry. I misread that.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
What did he end up saying? What, was it 40? I'm sorry, I misread.
I think
No,
it
that's fine.
was. We
I
can
think
always
it
go
was
back to
40.
the video too and confirm, but
Okay, sorry. So never mind.
it was 50 last year.
Yeah.
Yes, and he came down in cost, and I can't remember what he said. I apologize.
You've got it in here twice that I missed the last meeting. In the back here, it says, also Mauer was not present to update the board on sports action website. That's just really.
Just a reminder.
Reminder Mauer.
We were talking about.
If you forgot about it from the attendance section,
She is not here again.
Also, not-
still hadn't shown up.
Still not here.
I did guess it.
Jeez.
I just didn't want you to think that we were. He sent
Looking for a final price. Confirmation.
Cause he sent us the
Mhm.
flyer, which looks nice.
Did you find the flyer? It's just not opening. He sent it on February 3rd at
Ask aside
2:53.
an official question.
No.
That is not.
Is it related to the minutes?
Did you find it?
What does it have to do with? Kind of.
We'll think about it for the campaign.
Well, no, it's not like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna, it was just a random thought. I just read a note to ask.
No, I just moved to town, yep.
What we can do is, if you guys find it, just, if it does need to be changed, just holler.
I kinda just spent some time. with it.
Yeah, it looks like they're charging $45.
Getting settled
Clinic.
pretty good.
45, she just yelled.
45.
I just.
I know. Is that higher than what we
Oh, really?
discussed though?
I suggested 40 and he came back with 45.
Oh, okay, so really it should be.
I used to mow the grass.
Yeah, it's
there.
45.
And Sean said he's
Yeah, I know,
table
the building
softball
that you
building
guys are
too.
in has that backyard kind of.
So,
All
with the
right.
change with the 45. Yeah. I'm like, and then I misread it completely. Oh, jeez.
So is that the only change?
That's the only one I saw.
So do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 3rd meeting?
As amended.
January 5th.
Motion.
As amended.
Motion to approve as amended.
We have no reports.
I'll second.
You get a second on the vote.
I'll second it.
Oh,
I'll
sorry.
second the minute.
And we have no reports.
Need to vote on the minutes.
Oh.
You have a motion and a second, you just need to vote, yeah.
Oh, can I vote, or I need a vote to, I'm really bad at this. I need a
You're doing
vote
fine.
to,
Yeah, I don't think.
do
we
I
can
need
do
a
any
vote
better.
for
Nobody knows.
To
approve
approve the
the
minutes.
passing of the minutes
All in favor.
as amended?
There you go.
All in favor of passing
The minutes.
the minutes as amended from January 5th?
Say
All say aye.
Aye.
Nays,
Aye.
same sign,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Good job.
There you go.
Oh my gosh.
You're getting it.
Oh, okay. Old business updates on assigned tasks.
Any follow-up on that last one?
Yeah. It was the park
Repairs.
repairs list.
Yeah, I think that's a separate,
I know, but I
Agenda
didn't
item.
write much in my notes about that.
The only thing that, Nate, that I can remember is you were going to talk to the school about using the
Mhm.
soccer fields, did you do that?
Yeah, what we'll have to do is sign off, we'll have to get a signature on their facility use agreement, that's not a problem.
Okay, and you'll do that?
Yeah, I'll work
You'll
with
do
Chad on that,
Okay.
yep. We talked about it a couple of times already, so.
So, with that though, this, I mean, kinda goes into something else, but we wouldn't be able to offer like concessions and where's the bathroom and all of that if we do it
We can do it
east
there.
of the football field.
Yeah.
It just
Maybe
brings
they'll let
up
us put a-
additional, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it there, cause obviously if the fields are too wet, it makes sense, but then we're gonna need porta potty.
Yeah, I don't think that'll be a problem.
So you guys will put in a porta potty over there,
Yeah.
or will the,
So
And is
Justin,
this-
what we're talking about, the old football field, which is south of all the ball fields in the park,
Okay.
that's probably the lowest spot in town. So for spring soccer, it's always pretty wet. Even if it hasn't been raining. So what we're going to do in spring is move it east of the high school's football field, to the corner of 17 and 44 there. So we'll need a porta pot there if we can't get them to just open up the restrooms. And
Well, I
I don't
think
think they
they-
will, cause it'll be
They'd
locked
have
up there.
to, yeah, they'd have to open up those front
The whole
gates, and it's
facility.
kind of a
Mhm.
jaunt to
Yeah.
get over there from that, don't you think, for
Yeah.
those little ones?
I think it'd be easier just to get a
It's
porta pot.
this school's property, so we had to ask.
so you guys will put in a porta potty there,
Yeah.
and you'll handle that, like I don't need to do anything
We
with
usually
that?
get special requests from the school to have porta potty on the site.
More than likely. I don't think it'll be an issue, but if it is, we'll readjust.
Do we usually have a porta potty down at the T-ball field?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
So we can probably move there
Yep.
afterwards or something?
We could do that, we
Yeah,
could just
that probably
use,
Mhm.
yeah, that's a good idea,
Mhm.
cause the timing would match up.
Yeah,
Pretty
cause
well.
we'll get done the 16th of May and they'll start practices and stuff at the T-ball field. Okay, so you're, just so I make sure that I'm not supposed to do anything with the school, Nate, you're gonna do all the talking with them and get the porta potty figured out?
I will do the talking to the school, Justin, I'll probably do the rest of it.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
get it
somebody
all
from the
taken care
city,
of.
just not me.
Yeah.
I just wanna make
Yeah.
sure, like,
We got a guy
I'm
for
not
that now.
supposed to do it.
We got a guy, we got a guy.
We got a guy, we got a guy.
We will,
All right,
we will
we got-
arrange the porta
We got a
potty.
guy, you're the
Yeah.
guy. Okay. Okay.
So any other updates? Is this still updates on the sign task?
Yeah.
Is there something specific? I'm not sure where we were going with updates on the sign task,
Oh,
other
we kept it
than,
as a standing item.
didn't this originate as what do we want from our different departments to kind of move to Justin? Isn't this what
No,
this
what
is?
that was, I asked for this item because
Okay.
we had several times where people were taking things away, and then we didn't necessarily hear what happened with those afterwards.
We
Oh,
get
like
the
who's
Yeah,
doing
like-
what,
Right,
who's
like,
ordering the porta potty, and then we never really discussed
right, and
who's
then we
doing
would
it. I
never
see.
say,
Sorry.
or
Okay.
like, there was a couple different things that like, just in the committee, we'd be like, oh yeah, okay, I'll do that, or hey, I'll check on that item, and
I
then we
see.
never would come back,
That makes
like, as a
sense.
group to hear like what actually happened with that. A decision would be made, but it wasn't ever brought back to the group. So I don't know whether, you know,
Did we have any sign tags last month?
I can think of one thing,
yeah,
was Clinton said he was gonna kinda look at some signage for
That was
some.
in December,
Yep.
he said that, yeah.
Yeah, that was like a couple months ago.
Yeah, I would like an
And then-
update on.
and there was also, and I don't know whether it comes back to like one of these items, but I think you were gonna check with the, your technical people on like the ball field
And I
stuff.
did, and I did get a response this time, and they are currently working with Baltic, nope, Parker. So they are helping Parker with their fields currently,
Oh, okay.
but he said to reach out to him in May.
Oh,
So
okay.
then I asked, in what capacity do you, so just as an update, this is the sports turf management instructor at Southeast Tech, and I just asked, you know, I know you did some field work for Baltic, is this something where you do, like how do you decide what town you go to, and would this be something you could do for Lennox? And I kind of explained what we needed, and his response just was that they were helping Parker and that he asked me to reach out again in May. I asked in what capacity they function, what are the things that they do, and I haven't gotten a response.
Okay.
So, I don't know if that'll go anywhere, but even if they could do
Or just
something,
yeah.
you know, and I assume it's free, so, that it would be free work, I guess, helpful. And if they're getting graded on it, I would hope they'd be super meticulous. But
Right. So then it would be the sign for the pool, that'd be
So the sign for the pool is what I wanna know,
from Clint.
and I don't know what.
The donor sign, right?
Yeah,
Correct.
he was checking on what he could do at his work. It's those kinds of things, like
Yeah,
everybody says like,
right.
oh, we'll take it away, and then we just kinda get into our usual.
And the
Thing.
sign for
Why
the
don't-
pool, I don't know what kind of materials they work with at their job, like if it's more plastics and vinyl.
There's a lot.
I don't know that that's the vision that I see for the
I think we talked about doing that metal.
foundation sign,
Yeah.
right? I want it to be more a metal or,
You made it sound
I
like you
can't
could
think
do,
of other
you could do
materials.
Why don't
whatever.
Justin and I follow up with,
like more of a plaque, like a nice looking
yeah,
plaque
Okay.
that has different size squares on it, and, so Justin, just as a backstory, we planned to do a brick walkway, so that's why this really
Okay.
isn't planned this far out. But then a lot of the community members kind of expressed, and this board expressed concern, just, you're walking on it, the weeds grow between it, the dirt gets pushed over it, and it's just not as nice as having something up on the wall. So I narrowed it down to either, do we do something in the landscape, which I would love, but I'm concerned about when the parking lot eventually gets tore up, will that be affected? So do we just put something mounted on the wall? And that's where I'm at. And I don't know who to call, like, I don't know who does that. So,
I was at Hartford High School. Did you get that text? I think I sent you a text about, they had a really cool
if you did, I
sign.
didn't see it, but,
Okay,
this
And
week
it-
was a little crazy, so I apologize if I missed it.
no, it's okay. Here, let me just go in my, it was really cool what they had
See, that's what I want,
appreciating
like, I
all
keep
of their
trying to-
donors.
you know, look for different options, something that I could take to a company and say, hey, do you do this, and if so, how much?
do you want
Yeah,
some
I-
renderings from a few companies, just say?
That's what I would love, but I don't know what company, who do you go to for that, you know?
This is, here,
Like for the baseball field, that's like a
You could ask
vinyl,
David,
You know, that's
David
not
Block
like
at
a-
Stockwell would know.
An
and I'm not saying it
engraving
doesn't look
company?
nice, it does, but on brick, don't you think, like at the
For
pool?
the baseball field, what do you mean?
What do you think of
Like
like the
the
historical
Erickson
signs at Falls Park,
Slam, or a grand slam, and,
the different
but
donor
it's more
halls?
like like there's like 5 or 6 donors on there, right?
Yeah.
Where this, I wanna do
They
like
had it-
little plaques, if you did 250, and then if you did 1,000, you get a bigger plaque, and it's,
Did you want it on the pool bathhouse, or
well,
was it
I originally
freestanding?
wanted a freestanding in the landscape, but if we're gonna
This
pull up,
is,
that's all gonna get tore up with the
like
parking
a
lot.
picture
Mm-hmm.
of
Yeah.
how it looked.
Majority of it would be.
And then
Oh,
I wanna
it's
put
like
it on the
little
north,
squares.
west side,
Oh,
pedal path, nobody's
And
gonna
they,
see
Nobody's
it.
gonna
they
see
had
it.
attached it to a
Yeah.
concrete
Like
wall.
that.
That I like.
This is
Yeah, it was
exactly
That's
what I
indoor
was,
though,
Pretty
isn't it?
cool looking.
right, so
But
that's
that could
probably
be attached to
indoor.
that
We
could
could
be
put that on the
attached to
wall.
the, on the,
So I looked, it's called the Graphic Shop is the place, and I wrote their number down.
Oh, that's perfect. See, that's what I want,
Why
like,
don't
I
you
don't
email it
know
over and
who
we'll-
to, and maybe Clint's company can do something like that, but I
I thought it looked
I just have a
really
certain
nice.
idea that,
yeah, and that'd be good, cause it
Yeah,
could
if
be
you
different
could
sizes.
Can you email it over so we can have kind of a, that's kind of what I was picturing, I
Yeah.
guess, just,
right.
it's floating, but it's attached to the building.
And I don't
Mhm.
think it's anything we need to be urgent on. I noticed Beersford didn't have theirs out yet. The only thing though is the pricing, because I don't wanna spend money without knowing what that's gonna cost.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not urgent, but it's not, we have to order it next week.
No, do you want it before we open or not?
Ideally, yes. So we need to start like with renderings, but that's kinda what I was asking for in December, is if anybody had a contact.
We do need something, if you guys do find something, that we need something for the concession building too.
didn't
nice like that or
like
whatever.
the other concession. I do like it. I just think with a lot of donors, you need something
Right.
bigger
Right.
with different scale.
I think that would
So,
look really nice on the
Digital logo.
outside,
Yeah,
just attached to the.
yeah, I think so too.
And then you could build to it, build onto it.
That's what I
that
wanted,
way.
like I imagined
you
to
know.
have some blank ones that eventually you could
Yeah,
engrave or how, whatever it is, I don't know.
I
right.
know like at the Omaha Zoo,
Yeah.
they have a wall and they just paste it up pretty much,
Yeah.
just with lettering. And then they have font sizes for like their, you know, their donor
The
levels.
different
They'll have a
levels.
smaller
Yes.
font, bigger
Mhm.
font, biggest font, and then
Right.
they usually that's bigger corporations and then they slap a logo on it.
Yeah,
And then for lower level sponsors, they do the brick walkway. And I mean,
okay,
in Omaha, I mean, with the zoo, they get so much foot traffic, there's no weeds that
Right.
grow in between it or anything like
Yeah.
that. And they kinda do the same thing at USD, when you walk right into the Sanford Stadium, they got it right when you walk in, you know, right on the wall.
that's kinda what I was
Right.
envisioning is something like that. And I don't know if we're limited in materials because you can't really, I don't think you can put it inside. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
that that's
Well,
large
I
enough.
mean, I
You
sent it
could, I
to
just
Nate.
don't know that we
Should I
want to.
send it
Right.
as photos
It's gonna
to
be
the
stuck
text
in-
message
Yeah, you could,
and do
Then
it
That
that
it
works.
way?
won't- Yeah,
yeah.
you gotta add Nate, Justin on there.
We'll see if we can find, David up at Stockwell would be a good resource for this too.
Yeah.
They're all here landscape design,
So I was
so he
hoping
would know what
Carruthers
two or
could
three
kinda
companies
help with that too, but
have we
they
asked
told
him.
me, yes, and they told me, I swear they said they could not attach something to the brick on the outside, which I just don't believe.
I don't see why you could.
Right. I think they just
Concrete anchor to
meant
the
that
wall.
they don't do that, I don't know.
That could
Right,
be.
maybe they don't
But
have
yes,
the
I did
tools.
reach out to Carruthers and I asked, and their suggestion was the brick walkway, that's what they,
Yeah.
was their final,
We should be able to find somebody that can do it for us. though.
right.
We'll figure something out.
Okay.
Okay, so we don't have a motion for anything there.
No, there's nothing going on at this point.
So park repairs list update,
I'll just update for Justin, I know he was out in the park a couple times last week, and taking note and spent some time with Darren going around to him. So he's got the park repairs list, I can't remember what else you noticed, the shop needs to,
One thing I've noticed is that the shop is pretty disorganized and there's a float inside the shop that's kinda taking up some room. I mean, if it's only used one day a year, I feel like maybe it should be moved.
like a parade float,
Parade
Mhm.
float, yeah.
kind of
If it's,
band float, and I would
Yeah.
like to have
does
it
that
replaced
get
for
used?
once a year.
Yeah. For the
It's huge.
municipal band,
Yeah.
right? It's really big.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, whether that means we find alternate storage for it, that's one of those things. The fire truck is coming out of there now, so,
Yep.
I'd like to get that float out of there too, but we'll wanna store it inside somewhere, so.
One other thing I noticed was the basketball court, one of the hoops, you know, completely missing, so
Right.
that'd definitely be something I'd wanna get repaired, just so it's playable actually for a full game instead of just one side of it.
That's been on our list for,
Yeah,
I
Few
don't know.
years?
Well, and usually when it gets to
Probably four.
spring, we kind of have this meeting and
Mhm.
walk through the
Yeah.
parks and just start putting a list together of all that stuff. And then I think this is still on there from our last year's
Yes.
list kind of thing.
From 2 years ago.
We just wanna-
It's every year.
Yeah, that, we wanted to make sure we had this on there yet, just so that we keep it on top of
Keep it.
mind stuff.
Mhm.
Right,
That, you know, when we have chances, you know, that's one of the things they do, the parks crew, so.
other than that, there's quite a bit of snow cover right now, so.
Did have somebody call and ask about, skating rink a couple weeks ago, which I didn't hear any discussion about it last year, and this is the first time this year, but, that's one of those things that we need to put on that list as well, is getting rid of the berms around, that whole area on West Evergreen, and figuring out what to do with that
What?
space.
What are berms?
The
The dirt
little
mountain,
hills, like little hills.
where it's all mounted
Oh.
up.
I think it was
There-
there
was
to
it
hold
outside?
some
It
water
was
to
supposed to
make
hold
it,
water in
but I
there.
don't think that holds water very well.
It doesn't
did
hold
do.
water
at all.
Well, they tried it, wasn't it last year? They tried
No,
a couple,
tried
it's been
like
a couple years.
Probably
Has it?
4 years ago they tried it, and it
I
was.
thought they
but
just
it
tried, we talked about it in our meeting, I wasn't here 4 years. No.
They did it probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Like he tried to fill it and it wouldn't freeze. It
That
wouldn't
was
even
two-
hold
that was
water.
2 years
Swear
ago.
this was
That
last
was
year.
two, that was 2
There's a
years
berm on
ago.
2 sides.
Okay.
That was
That
2
doesn't
years
really-
ago that they tried to fill it and it wouldn't.
I keep getting asked the question, why don't you leave a little water in the bottom of the pool and let it freeze and we can skate on it?
Cause that's really hard
A pool.
on the structure.
Well, and really, in the deep end, you'd only have this like square, because you don't wanna fill the deep end and then.
Right.
No, I know that we can't do that, but I keep getting asked that question. Yeah,
Can't
I
happen.
think people are teeth.
They're joking.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope
You
so.
need to clarify that from the start.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was a joke. These people aren't actually thinking that.
We're not voting on it. It's a comment.
Okay, good.
People also wanna know if they can be the first to dive in, and they wanna do it now, and they wanna do it into the snow.
Oh, okay, so you got a lot of fun,
Yes.
lots of funny people. But no, they tried to do it a couple years ago and it didn't work out, and even when they did get the water to stay in there, it was not safe, I mean, to skate on it very well. Or if you had skates, you couldn't have skated on it, cause it was too bumpy, so people would have broke their leg, it would have been a hazard. But we played broom ball on it, but you played those in shoes, so. Anyhow. Okay, so.
Right, Brady, keep going
Sorry, I'm
here.
sorry, I'm sorry.
Come back to us here, Rick.
Okay, where are we at?
Parks and
Discretionary
Discretionary.
budget.
So this is the continuing discussion on what to do with the 12,000 that we have in general fund for, the park board to kind of say where they wanna spend this money. The focus has really been on the softball field, so we've had more discussion with, some other groups around that. Wrote a couple of grants that might be able to help for the larger cost of some of these ideas for the softball field. We talked about moving the light poles in the outfield, and that's gonna be 5,000 to 10,000. It's kinda hard to get a good feel for because
This might be.
there's not a lot of people that really do that.
Right,
So,
right. Must be your electric co-ops. or
yeah,
something.
we probably have Excel come do it.
Right.
So one of the other things that popped up, was the, distance to the fence for softball is quite a ways outside of what's the current regulatory range for softball, given the groups we have. And if we were to move that fence in, we wouldn't have to move the lights at all. And that would bring the field back into a softball regulation. I don't have those measurements in front of me. Garrett was talking about it. I think I talked to you a little bit about it too. We were looking at that possible grant.
But then we wouldn't be able to play adult league and church league on that field.
Yeah, you'd probably have to move it to the middle field.
Would it fit on the middle?
Can't fit, 'cause there's no room on that field for use. for
It
those
would
guys.
go into that. I feel like you'd hit it.
And that fence,
Yeah,
too,
over
is
that
pretty,
fence
the
all the
back of
time.
the Legion fence is pretty dangerous too, I was thinking about that the other day. Cause it's just exposed with the,
What does it
Oh,
cost
Oh,
to
yeah.
pull the light
and
pole
there's a
out?
gap in there too.
5
5
to
to
10,000 to pull the light pole
Did
off.
you say that tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We could always just cut the tires off and put an actual like foam thing around the pole
Yeah,
for the time being.
bubble wrap it,
What's that?
bubble wrap it. So there are options there. Regrading the infield is just not very, I mean, it's feasible, but it's only gonna create problems elsewhere. Whether that's trying to get the water elsewhere or just letting it sit in the bleacher area. So if that's what we want to do, and we wanna regrade that infield, know that we're going to have to spend more money in future years, doing a serious drainage project. for that area. We can't send it to Elm. There is tiling there, we just don't know where it goes.
Well, we've got somebody to shoot it too, Nate Nelson.
Yep.
So, we've got some there to kinda help us, we gotta take it somewhere, but take it to the outfield for all that matters. I mean,
Why
you know,
can't we take it, is it too far to take it to the old football field? It's a wet.
It's
area.
not too far.
It's already wet, who cares? And eventually we'll have enough money to drain it out across the highway into the field that's owned by somebody else.
They're gonna be thrilled.
I think it's the school.
No.
Well, it's
Well,
like a
that's,
lagoon down there, so who cares if it's wet?
If we were able to get it to 44, we could get it to Long Creek eventually. But getting it down there is part of the issue. I mean, there's no,
If we're shooting into the outfield, I don't, I
I
guess-
mean, it's
I
not
know
that
that-
much water and that much space. It's
Yeah.
not gonna cause, I mean, you know, in my opinion, it's just an infield. It's not gonna
yeah,
all of a sudden cause flooding problems places or
Right.
whatever the deal is. It's just not gonna cool there, you know, cause it sits there in the clay and just doesn't do anything. If it goes off to the grass, you know, or somewhere in the grass,
yeah, we're not worried about getting it over to the outfield. That wouldn't be an issue.
Just tell it to the house.
The entire infield would have to drain that way though, and I don't know if that's feasible.
if we drain it all. to the
Unless
outfield-
you shift it and drain some toward the stands.
right?
Okay, are you talking about draining it to the outfield like by Elm? Because then in 10 years, if we have money,
This
we're
isn't-
starting all over to go the other way, you know what I mean?
You know, if you get a project like he's talking with the whole drainage thing, that's a whole another animal. You know what I mean? It's not just pulling, I mean, all we did was pull the egg line off, put some clay in there, shot it so that it kind of went one way or another. Even some goes both ways, you know, that half of it could go towards the outfield and the other half could go towards the bleachers or whatever the deal is. And then just, you know, put the egg line back on there and get it through, you know, it'll last 5-6 years that way or whatever the deal is, until we can do it right. And that requires a lot of, you know what I mean?
Does doing it right require a different location? Without tiling on Elm?
No, not necessarily.
The lot
It
by the
requires
big
more than
baseball field
$12,000.
would fit a
Yeah.
softball field.
What's that?
The lot by the big baseball field would fit a softball field. By the apartments.
Oh, in between.
Saying you're gonna spend how much money to fix
The
the
lot there?
softball field and just buy
I
that
don't know if
lot.
that's big enough.
What lot?
The one
By the
right
big
next to the big
baseball
baseball field, like,
The only
like you're
lot.
going towards the
That's
Dollar
why
You
General
General.
can't
baseball field.
put a field there.
No.
I don't
It's
think
not
it's
even
big
close
enough.
to the size of anything. It's just a long lot.
Yeah.
You do some soccer maybe or something there, or something, but even there it'd be
It's a
tough.
small football field.
Yeah, plus he wants a lot of money for it, cause he wants a
Oh,
commercial.
that is small. I thought it was bigger.
We know.
He wants like 100,000 for that lot or something.
Yeah.
$100,000 for that lot.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I would like to have eventually for something.
This is perfect size.
It's dirt one right now.
So Nate,
A
it
multi-use
sounds
field
like,
would be perfect for
The
it.
So we
T-ball
got the
field has a lot next to it
$12,000.
that's for sale. Right next to it.
Yeah, it does. We actually have land out there too, existing.
Look at this perfect square. Look at that.
We own this, the city does.
This little tiny piece.
We need a parking lot, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking,
So-
if it's $18,000 just for the egg line, right?
But you're not
For
gonna-
all new, right?
Right.
That assumes we're not using any of
Okay.
the existing, and I think we'd like to reclaim as much of that as
Right,
possible.
right.
Where does the drain tile come from that's there now? You have no idea where it goes,
We
but
have no idea
who
where
put
it goes.
it there?
No clue. So where I saw it exposed was on the first base line. Is that right? Yeah.
Between the dugout and first baseline.
Yep.
There's running east and west.
It runs from east to west, yeah.
So
But
what
I have
can
no
we do
idea
for
where it
$12,000?
goes.
Well, I don't think.
You can do the dirt work that we're talking about, reclaim as much air land as possible, you can do that for 12,000. If it goes over that, then you start looking at the recreation fund balance, to make up the difference.
I mean, I think if you went out there, even with a string, right, when you, from the home base or whatever the deal is, and drew your, your half circle, whatever, and then just put an edger right there, and then you could skid steer and just took all that out and put it over there, and then shoot it so that it shoots, bring clay in or whatever, put it down there, and put the aglet back on. I mean, we're a lot better off than we were, and we don't spend very much money.
Do that in August.
Well, that's the problem. I think it's gonna have to be August, because I don't think you're gonna be able to get your machinery in there in the spring without damaging it.
What time is, when's girls softball done for the year? They're fall ball.
Like the week after the 4th of July, it's usually when
No,
state is.
that's rec,
It's,
fall ball.
church softball has their final tournament like the first weekend of August.
Okay.
And then there's fall ball,
There's fall
I don't
ball that
know what
goes
that would
through
be, but-
September.
till it
We could
snows.
plan
October,
a
I
field
think.
for a year.
Yeah.
Seriously?
It's
Yeah.
all
But
right
the
there.
reality, last time it only took about a week.
And our
Oh, really?
fields are so
Yeah.
embarrassing.
I mean, cause once you get in
Everybody
there
else's.
with the skid
Yeah.
steer, it just took us
So
through the
there's
football
no way
field
to do
piled
it
up.
this
So I
spring?
mean, it wasn't
There'd be
very,
no way
and
to,
then once you take
fix
it
it
off,
this
you just gotta
spring?
shoot it, and, it really wasn't a long process at all,
When will we start?
you know?
When
It
do
might have
we
been a
start
week and a
using
half,
that?
but the problem with it spring
Well,
here
we
is
could
that if you
avoid-
get in the middle of something and it rains a bunch
I
or
don't
whatever, you're
Yeah.
gonna be.
I mean, just
We
to
could
have
ask-
Practices can
I've
happen
asked Sean,
elsewhere
we could
No,
avoid
you
it.
didn't feel it all.
until games start, which is end of May, beginning of June.
How long can we delay using that field this spring?
I don't think long enough.
May is way too wet to do the work, that's the
Yeah,
problem.
I think it's gonna have to be August, and just
I mean,
make
you-
sure we have it planned out, ready to go, and just do it.
Usually we
We,
have
we
like,
can do dirt work late in the year. I mean,
Can fall ball play? I don't know,
I
can
already
they
talked to
play
fall,
like,
I mean, I talked to fall ball, and they were fine just
I don't
using the
know.
other fields for.
that's what I
Oh,
mean,
they
like
were
on the
only-
baseball.
I said last time
field
it
or
took about a week
something.
and a half,
okay.
that's all
so
that
they
it was
can-
down.
yeah, if we're gonna work on that, are we extending the infield? We're not gonna have to reseed anything?
No, cause it's gonna become dirt.
Okay.
So really, that's the only real difference, which might be a little bit different cause we're taking more infield. The last one, we didn't do that. We didn't make it bigger or cut the lip. We could have, but then we just decided just to leave it the same thing. But I don't think it'll be,
that's 5 or 7 feet is all we need. I think we
Yeah.
said 10 or 15 last time, but it's
Right.
not necessary.
I think if it's, that'll also help with a little bit of the drainage, because that lip is such a big thing now that it all pools in there.
So
Oh,
Nate Nielsen told me.
Yeah, Chris
when
Hansen
we
got a hold of him, and I
We
think
did
I,
ask.
I'm sure.
and he's worked for Banner, I think, and he does it all the time,
Yep.
and he said not a.
But
not
only a
problem.
week and a half is all it would take to,
It doesn't take very long, cause the skid steer gets it done in a matter of no time.
okay.
And once again, it'd be nice if the city would run the skid steer for that
We
part,
got two of them.
or two of them, and just, otherwise, we have people that know how to run it too, but if the city doesn't wanna be part of it, but I would assume that they would.
We would, the only thing that's gonna hold us back is if we have another wet year and August or September ends up being a super dry month, we're gonna asphalt the crap out of everything.
Right.
So, that's where their attention's gonna be.
I mean, it's possible something could happen in the spring, but like the last 2
I
or
just
3
wouldn't bet
springs,
on
it
it.
hasn't been even close,
Nope.
so I don't think it's gonna.
Last time I met with, Mitch, Stocko was willing to put in some labor on this kind of stuff too. They're always looking for those kinds of opportunities, so, assuming that they're the city engineer, I think they'd be willing to help out again too.
And last time we did it in October, after everything, but I think if we get it closer to August, that would be better, because
Yeah.
you do run into getting caught in snow if you wait too long, But
Yeah.
I think anywhere from August to October.
We were
should be
still
able to
doing
make it
dirt
work.
work on Central Basin last week in November,
Right.
We still didn't have very much frost in the ground yet, so. But you don't wanna delay it too late, cause then you get, snow's fine, it's the frost that
Right.
really messes with it, so.
So we still think that we could do it for the 12,000?
I think we could probably pull off what's on there, reclaim as much of it as possible. Reestablish a clay base. It's possible.
And we still have the recreational fund or
We would have to go to the
Because
rec fund if we start going over that.
And there
If
was-
we can't, if there's less agrilining there than we think,
the.
that's gonna be expensive. That's where the real cost comes in.
do we know what a truck full of Agrolime costs?
Yeah, we had that from,
I mean, not necessarily from a contractor, but what we paid for, cause usually we buy it and they drop it off down at the, right. I mean, I kinda thought it was $1,500 or $2,000, but I don't know for sure if that's.
oh, I wanna say this was I wanna say we were looking at 2 loads, if I remember right, and it was like $18,000.
Really?
Yeah, it's expensive. How long was that?
2 loads, that was 18,000.
Well, it's gotta come all the way from Mankato, I think. So transportation, plus it's hard to get a hold of.
Let's do that soon.
You could've just picked some up
Yeah.
and brought it.
I don't see it here. If I remember right, it was more than half of the cost for that field, which was
And how much is in the rec,
30,000.
how much is in the rec amount?
But we've bought in it,
direct fund right now.
don't we have, our history of what we bought for Agrolime?
Yeah, but
Because
that price changes monthly.
I don't think it was anywhere close to $9,000 for a load when we did it though.
It depends on what size load we're getting to. We're talking about 2 side dumps. On that quote, if I remember right. If we go out there with a tandem axle dump truck, it's gonna be quite a bit cheaper. So. You're asking about the current balance in the recreation fund?
I think
Yeah.
it says somewhere here, like,
Does it say it?
21. Or the old notes do that.
Let me pull up the one for tomorrow and see where we're at.
21,000, and then 12,100.
21,493 right now. So, I mean, I think it's pretty unlikely we dig into that entirely. If we're talking 12,000 plus 21, I mean, that's over what Stockwell's estimate was for it. If I remember right, it was at 30.
Yeah.
So, I think it'd be pretty unlikely that we'd have to go that far.
Okay. I was just thinking about like, you know, will we have enough like to do the project, like the baseball, or the basketball hoop, you know? Like will
We
we
need
have
to get a
enough
quote
do
from
those?
somebody else.
Well, we just need a quote for Agrolime.
Mhm.
We just need to get
I
Agrolime.
mean,
If we're doing
Stockwell will
donated
do
labor,
I mean, we're gonna-
Grading, dirt, so the grading and dirt work the city would do, we just need the egg line, is that what you're saying?
mhm.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, if we were gonna have somebody else, when Stockwell pulls these bids together, they talk to different
Contract.
contractors and say, hey, this is about how much we're talking about yard wise, and
Mhm.
I would assume he's reached out to Kirby Hofer and a few others and asked them. So I think we can, I mean, it's worth a shot, but know that there's a good chance that we're creating problems somewhere else by doing this, so.
I think if we can get somebody get us a quote for Agrolime, for a load of Agrolime, and
Yes.
so then we can at least budget kind of what we think and not have to wait all the way till.
Find out in July for an August project.
Right.
Mhm.
So somebody's gonna get a quote for egg line,
Yeah, we'll take care of that.
and then, so we don't need to vote on what we're doing, it's 12,000 right now until we have that quote, but then it's not gonna be till March. Is that gonna be okay?
Yeah, I mean, that's still, we're 6 months out of here, so, but
Let's see.
I think we're okay time-wise.
Okay. So, nothing to vote on there. Move on to new business, Park and Rec website. I went over kind of first of all, registration opened on the 29th. I set it to, it won't close, but it'll assess late fees on February 29th at 11:59. I'm still trying to understand every piece of the website, but I've been through it with Justin, so he's gonna do more investigating on exactly how to set up And times it's not as easy as it sounds like it would be, but after February 29th at 11:59 PM, it'll start charging the late fee. And so what we need to do is at some point go in and just shut off registration. So whether that's March 15th or whatever that is, like it's not set to end on a certain day, if that
Have we
makes sense.
gotten it out to school reach and
Yep,
all
I
that
sent
kind
it
of
out to
stuff?
school reach,
Paper?
it's not on it's not on the paper, I didn't do that, so I don't know, Justin, if that's something you wanna, if you guys would be able to do. They might do it for free,
They do.
They usually
yeah,
do.
Are you sitting down with them this week? With Wendy?
What's that?
Did she set up a time to sit down with you, or did she already do it?
She does it, yeah.
Okay,
Wendy's,
yeah.
Kelly Bolton, if you just emailed her the information.
What's her name?
Kelly, I got her email address for you.
Do you have the email that it's on the Facebook page, like the verbiage.
You want the same message?
With the link, I think so.
Okay.
Anyway, and so it'll assess that late fee after that date. So basically March 1st, it'll start assessing a late fee. What else? So Justin's gonna work on learning how do we group people, just all that stuff is kind of new. I talked to the Park and Rec administrator, in T, and so they started on Sports Engine a couple years ago, and so he had a lot of good insight too that Justin can reach out to him too. As far as the concessions fee, so I did find out how we could make partial refunds. I don't know for sure who's gonna do that yet, but that's something we could do for the concession opt-in fee.
Denise is working through how to make that happen.
Okay.
There's still some issues with report that we're pulling, so.
When I don't know that it has to be immediately.
No,
It's just if the parents are communicating and
Yeah.
one of them says, well, I paid that out fee, it's not there anymore. So I was able to remove the opt-out fee so if they go in to register for T-ball, it shouldn't ask them do you wanna work concessions? If not, this is that fee, and soccer. I didn't do 7-8, I thought we could talk about it tonight. We did it last year for 7-8, and they do use like the middle baseball field and the softball field, so I don't know.
7 and 8 don't,
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
not for anything that I know.
EU does for softball.
AU might for softball, but no baseball does.
I know, but we can't do it for one, not the other. We can't do it for girls and not boys, or whatever. So, I don't know, just where.
So T-ball and soccer, you removed it,
Correct.
but there's some parents that already paid.
That already paid, yes,
So
and
then
so,
Denise is gonna have.
yeah, I found out how we can do a partial refund, but it's just gonna take somebody manually going in and giving partial refunds, and it should just hopefully I think it just goes directly back to their card.
Okay.
Instead of the city sending out refunds, it can be done through
Mhm.
Sports Engine,
Good.
which is a lot nicer. So it doesn't affect a lot of people, but there are some people that are already registered,
Mhm.
so.
I don't care if we leave it for 7 and 8, but they just like said we didn't, in the past, we just kinda, you could just also just put verbiage and just put, you wouldn't have to remove it. Just say, I mean, in theory, what we've done before kind of is, we'd like you to help. And then, there's not enough nights of concessions work if the people that use those middle fields and the big fields all sign up once.
Right.
So it's not necessarily required, like you need 7 and 8s and all those parents and everything, other than the fact that a lot of them don't do it. They don't help. So, but it doesn't make much difference, I suppose, if they, most of them, I think, are gonna say they're gonna do it, whether they're gonna do it or not. And if they're paying the $25, it's because they're pissed and they don't wanna do it at all,
Right.
just flat out.
I have heard people ask in the past, are you keeping track of the people who didn't pay? And
Right.
what if they don't sign up?
Well,
I've had a lot
that's,
of people ask
that's
that.
where Justin comes in, cause we haven't had the
So, yeah.
manpower
Right,
to keep up with.
and there are
that.
reports we can pull and
we can pull a
match it.
report of who opted out of the fee and said they would volunteer.
And then did.
And then we could match it up. How do we find out if they did or didn't though?
Well, because that goes through Sign Up Genius.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
we just-
okay.
So we
Yeah,
do a
it's
Sign Up
good
Genius for
process.
all the concessions.
That will work really well
And
then.
we
So
would've had
you-
it last year, but you deleted them all out
I did it on,
as we went
right.
along.
I did it on purpose, cause otherwise when
You
they
you have
get
to
to
have
the,
all those things to
yeah,
scroll
you get to
through.
the sign up genius page
Yeah.
and you got 3 pages to click next, click next, click next. Now I'm signing up for today, you know? And so I would delete them all, and then by the time I got asked those questions, I had had all those, that was all gone. You know, I
There's no way
didn't
to
think we,
just hide it and,
I
Yeah,
don't
there's
know.
gotta be a way.
But,
well,
you
let's do
know,
it, yeah.
it's pretty easy to export an Excel spreadsheet out of
Right.
Yeah.
Source Engine.
I just
And
didn't
then when they
have
sign up to Sign Up Genius, just put an X on them there and keep that thing, cause you can still delete them out, so you don't have to we just
Right.
didn't do it.
Well, and at that time, I didn't really see a need for that data, to know who signed up for concessions in May when it was July. You know, I didn't see the need for that. But,
It's more of a thing that it's, you know, and Justin will have that, is that they said, which is nice now, they said they were gonna help or they were gonna pay.
right,
And if you keep track, that's an easy way to get an email out when there's a tournament and stuff like that, hey, you guys haven't done anything yet.
We could
Yeah.
really use your help.
I
need
noticed
your
you
help. You
opted
haven't-
out of this. and-
You know, you opted out and you haven't
Yeah, you
necessarily
opted
signed up
in,
for your
yeah,
shift or
Didn't
something
pay
like
the
that.
$25.
It's a good way to fill that.
Here's your
Yeah.
game time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
no, I completely agree with that, but yeah, like before
Just make it as
Justin,
close to
it's
DMV
just, that
as
was very
possible.
a tedious
Yes.
process.
You can't make
Right.
it, find us out.
Right.
well, the other thought too was that $25 could go to paying somebody to
Right,
do their shift.
yeah,
You know, so if there was somebody that was a summer help or a guy, you know what I mean, or some
Right.
lifeguard or whatever, right, that they could work a shift and pay them.
Hmm.
I have had several people tell me that they pay it and they still work, cause it was their donation to the
Right.
city, like they use it as a donation.
And that's fine too.
And yeah, cause that's not gonna hurt anything, they either work or they don't, it won't matter. That's their call. But, the other thing too is, I have had the question, well, what if I opted out and paid the $25 and then I worked? Do I get my money back? I'm just letting you know the questions I get.
Take it,
To me at that point, I don't know, you paid it. It's
Thank you for your
it's not a
generosity.
deal. Thank you for the donation.
Yeah.
Next year.
Don't look at the sign up.
Exactly.
Don't look at the sign up, Gina's, if if you opted out and you paid your $25 and you don't, and you don't wanna have
Well,
it work, then
and that's
don't
the other
look
thing
at it.
too, is that
You know.
once they opt out, we wanna make sure to remove them from that sign up genius, so they're not getting, cause, it's, the
Ask.
sign up genius would cry for help every, hey, we need you, and if they paid the $25, they shouldn't have to be through that.
That's
you
right,
know?
they shouldn't be
They
asked.
shouldn't have to be.
True.
Yeah.
They
So
shouldn't be
then,
asked.
what you would have to do is, you'd have to run your report and then use that to build a separate database of
Or your
people
sign up Genius.
that you're
I wouldn't
messaging.
even.
Just put verbiage in there, say if you paid $25.
Ignore.
Move on.
Well,
But you're
Well, I mean,
saying
you
where
could-
they wouldn't get those emails.
I mean, there's gonna be, sign up genius is gonna have an email, something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the database has to go into the sign up genius to send it out.
No,
How do you get everybody's
just-
email address?
the distribution list from the website, I
Right.
just email all,
Oh.
here's
he'll-
the sign up genius link.
If there's a way to set up a
He'd
second
be able
distro
to
list.
set up a different distro list.
Yeah,
and
he
send
should
it
be
out.
able to pull
Yeah.
that out.
Right.
And pull
If
it out
he's
and
doing
only
these
send it
reports
to those that
anyway,
didn't
it would be the same
opt out.
report.
Just making
You
sense.
know,
I've never seen Sign Up Genius. I've never. heard of
That's
it,
super
so
easy, I can.
I just have to check it out and see.
Can
Still
add
trying
it
to
to the
get grip
list
on
of
sports
websites
engine.
where, you don't need to do Sign Up Genius until, I wouldn't worry about it till April.
Okay.
Put that on your list for April. I keep telling him things like, you can push this out, you can push this out. So basically what we need to vote on, if we want it, I don't know if it needs to go to a vote, but the 7/8s, do I have them take that off as well? And we add it to the list for Denise
Did we do it last
to
year?
pull? I think we did. I mean, without
I'm fairly
having it.
certain that I only pulled it off of T-ball and, what's that?
Soccer.
Well, soccer
Soccer
wasn't
never
at the
had
same
it.
time, so
Right.
soccer never had it, but I think I only pulled it off of T-ball, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
The issue is there's no concessions for the 7th and 8th grade, or the
Right.
7th and 8-year-olds.
Cause they're at the
Do we
T-ball
ever do
field.
concessions at the softball field when the 8 girls are there?
But last year was the first year they used were back.
Right.
Otherwise, they were, and we do concessions, 'cause they play Mondays and Wednesdays, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
So
So
there's
then there's no
concessions.
reason
So
to
we
remove
do.
it if they have some
And have we ever
concessions.
had complaints from those parents, do you think, or baseball?
It'd only be for the baseball, the baseball 7-8 doesn't.
Well, the other
play.
thing is, we talked
on-
about
by
moving
the
that
concession
concession stand that we have
The
there
8U
down
girls do,
to the
To
other.
the
7-8
T-ball field.
play at the
To
T-ball
do
field.
some-
And Nate and I
Like
talked
concessions.
briefly too about concessions eventually at soccer, someday, since we have the
Someday.
Since it's not available,
concessions
yeah.
there, why not? I don't know
We
who
may
wants
be able to get
concessions
that.
at 9 in the morning, we could do donuts and coffee.
I'll show up for that.
Yeah.
I don't care if my kid's playing soccer. or
Hot
not.
chocolate,
Yeah,
people,
the hot-
Seriously,
when we did
that
hot
would be
chocolate, lots of people bought it.
it's just, it doesn't face the soccer field,
Yeah,
so the
it's
parents
away.
wouldn't be able to see,
And
that's
it's,
kind of
and
a
it's a
bummer,
ways
but-
away, like
Right.
for them to walk. I mean, it's not terrible,
Great
but
flag
like,
Could walk right by
Right.
our park.
Right.
yeah.
We could get a little.
We probably
cart,
will move
wheel it
that
out
old
there.
concession stand over there.
Just
for
lemonade
the
stand.
venue, so
What?
repair.
Yeah.
It just said we could really wheel a little cart with hot
So that- that's all
chocolate.
boarded up.
That's what, yeah, on a little table.
We have just
set up.
table.
Well, and that was gonna go, well, it'll probably go into the dump, but,
Yeah.
you know, you've already taken care of that problem, I think,
Oh.
you're working on it more, so
Nope.
no reason for a building out there.
So we're all okay with
Do we need to,
staying for 7 and 8?
do like an official vote?
I don't think you need to. I
Okay,
mean,
so
if
we're
there's just
just-
general consensus. then
I don't
we
have
just
to do
say,
anything, it's already there.
Right.
So then we don't have to vote on it.
You're not changing anything from what we've done in the past, so.
I don't think so. Gosh, now I like in second guess.
And last, and this is better, cause last year they opted to pay the $25 and we kinda sent
It
it out.
didn't assess it, like, I mean, it
No, you
didn't
didn't pay for
add
it at
it
the time.
to their, like, right now, it adds it to their cart.
Right, which is exactly what you want them to do.
Right,
Because last time we had to go try to collect that $25 and some paid,
Right.
and some
Mhm.
didn't.
Right.
If they
And we
opted,
kinda sent them all invoices and stuff and different
Mhm.
things and,
right.
Please pay this, please.
yeah, so it's,
well, and it was brand new, and we just didn't really know, like,
well, the thing is, it was just a kind of a reminder that, hey, you need to help.
yeah.
Just trying to get parents to
Mhm.
help. So you leave it, and just if somebody complains, then just,
Well, we can readdress it next year if we get complaints.
Yeah, cause we
about it.
talked about moving the little concession stand down to the T-ball field,
Yeah.
but,
We may be able to do that this year, we just don't know yet.
yeah,
I mean, the thing is,
so they might have
the
some,
younger
Yeah,
the
like
concessions,
freezies.
there's
and
more
stuff.
people
Yeah.
at younger games than there are older
Yeah.
games.
yeah, I'd like to do that.
There's
Yeah.
grandparents, there's other brothers and sisters, the younger games are the ones where most of the people are that you're gonna do better in concessions.
Right,
So, it's just hard because that doesn't have any water and all that kind of stuff, you know, but you could do a limited thing of
We could
concessions
easily do
down
a
there.
stand.
Yeah, we talked about
Yeah.
that
So we
like
need to bring
6
boxes.
months ago, of
Well, I mean, you do a freezer and you have a bunch of that and you have some,
doing
well,
freezies.
just
Beverages
drinks and
and-
a couple things of
Yeah.
candy or something.
We just
so.
said freezies and whatever.
So there's a small, we talked about this briefly the other day,
Yeah.
there's a small
the T-ball game, margaritas on
concession
Sunday,
stand
I'm
we
all
used to
in.
work on.
I'm gonna go, my kid
And
will play
it's
either.
really, I mean, it's just sitting on a
Get
cement
coffee in the
block that
morning,
it
get
can
margaritas
easily
in
be
the
picked up
afternoon.
Bring
and
your
moved,
silver
and we've
just
talked
along.
about moving
Yeah.
it to the T-ball field, but there's no
Or
running
not sure.
water.
I see.
At the T-ball field.
So we would move it to the T-ball field and then just have a cooler in there or something
Yeah.
and run a little concession out of there.
I see.
We would like to do that this year. So,
I think the part of it is just cleaning up the park, getting that out of there,
yeah, and
That
it would
building.
look nice. if
getting
it
it
was
somewhere
cleaned
else.
out.
Kinda nice if there was a little gravel patch, something to sit on a little bit of the
Yeah.
dirt, but whatever. But it'd clean up that middle field area too, cause it's just sitting there doing nothing but getting vandalized now.
I think it's out of there, isn't it?
No, the
It's
concession
still
stand.
in there.
Oh, it is? I thought they pulled it out of there and put it behind PW shop.
I guess I haven't been over there, but
I
I
think
think.
they did move it.
Did they?
I think so, I think it's sitting back there.
When? It was still there when we played kickball.
Yeah, because it was after that, I went to go to.
Cause there was, I'd kick kids out of there, cause
Did
there
they
was
disconnect
broken
the power
glass.
and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's when we decided to pull it out.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, I went to go put a board over the window and
Yep.
screw it in there.
So they couldn't have just relocated
So-
it to the T-ball?
That was all.
And
It's on the
Parker
list.
Fairland.
It's on the
Okay.
list.
As is the bell tower, we need to figure out at some point where we wanna
Yeah.
put the old bell tower.
So you have anything more for the website,
From the pub,
Brittany?
I thought that they had a plan for that.
Hmm,
The
Yeah, really.
Historical Society came to an agreement with Tracy.
oh,
No, this was like a year ago, this isn't new. I don't know. I didn't think they were being stuff. Okay,
Do you have any more on the website?
no. Well, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, do you have any more on the website?
I don't know what you wanna know.
Move along.
I'm just
Keep
really
rolling. Keep
glad
rolling.
Justin's
next
here.
time.
Yeah.
I'm just very thankful for Justin, and that he's here. Okay, moving on. Soccer program.
No updates. There's nothing new.
fantastic.
School project. We're talking about kind of spending the fundraising dollars and where we want that to go, and kind of goes into the discussion, I don't know that everybody was here, but, putting whatever the donor wall up and kind of waiting to see for sure what that costs before we order anything else, but I think we're gonna have enough funding to do a couple more amenities plus maybe some shade structures, and I think it's gonna be really nice. Like, my concern now is I don't want it to be too crowded, and so I've been communicating with Carruthers, and they've sent me aerial views of what the different structures would look like and how much room you have in between, and they said it would not be too crowded, so I guess it's a good problem to have that we have that option. We talked about doing a security system, we'd like to do a security system for sure, especially with, vandalism that's happened at a lot of our park and rec buildings, and, just the equipment that's in there.
Cash.
And then, and cash, and then a sound system if possible. So I did ask Jason for some quotes, not a huge hurry on that, but whenever,
Justin spent some time looking at what equipment we have and don't have last
Yeah.
week, and then, is it Tuesday, Verlion's gonna be up here?
Yep, Tuesday, the supervisor of Parks and Rec is coming up. I worked for him before in the past. He's gonna come up here. We're gonna kinda go do a run through of the whole pool, what chemicals are needed, what the cost will be, which suppliers we can go through. And then I'm also doing a pool operator course, April 14th and 15th, just to get a better grasp of what needs to be done, all the materials needed and everything like that.
is it
Ryan?
different from Carruthers?
Was it Ryan?
Ryan Beck.
Is it
Yeah.
before?
Yeah, I knew it.
Really?
We did the Vermillion pool.
Not cheese.
Oh, I got you.
He wants to add
And
some
she
stuff
said,
at the pool and then also
okay, we
the
want an
baseball
opening
field
for
that
May
they
20th.
have.
So we're gonna do the pool operator training approximately 3 weeks
Really? I
before,
think
it
it's
was on
different.
Monday the 4th.
I think that's
Yeah,
specific
he's
to this
nice.
pool.
Oh, yeah.
He's
Oh.
talking about certified pool operator.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Could have met me down
That
there
would
if
be
you were
good.
working through him, so we did the pool.
Yeah, I was working there too, so.
Yeah,
Right, met along the line.
yeah.
We'll have Wi-Fi out at the bathhouse, so we'll probably be using, Square or some other POS, to, run concessions and inventory out there. We're hoping we'll be able to boost that all over the park, after that, so, we would also be able to use technology for concessions and the other concession stands from
So
there.
how would that, and I'm just curious, like,
I talked about
a
it
lot
a
of
little bit
kids
with
come up
Justin.
and get lollipops, they have
Yeah.
debit cards? you
So
know,
we
I don't
talked
know.
about
No,
that,
not
like,
that debit card.
so you can, I mean, the idea is they would still, all of them can pay cash if they
Oh,
want
you
to
just
pay
run it
cash.
and you
But
track
if
it.
you have a
Yeah.
parent that comes
Right.
in with a
So it's no
credit
different.
card and they
Yeah.
wanna buy a season pass or even just daily admission, or they don't have
Right.
enough money and they wanna buy freezies, they could have the option to use their debit
Right.
card.
Right.
And then if they knew it was there, I mean, I've never had cash, and so I would appreciate that. I don't expect it at a pool or a baseball game, but if you knew consistently that they
I
offered
think the
that.
parents would, they send a lot of
Yeah.
kids up to get
Yes.
freezies and stuff.
And
for
that's
the
what I
dog.
told him,
Yep.
Totally
Yeah.
Kids has 100 kids, and they're gonna carry $2-3 for the concessions in their
Right.
little bag, they're not gonna have a debit card. But it was kind of, it's an option,
Right.
but it wouldn't have to run through.
The more important, I mean, it's, whether it's a cash or a debit card or however we get it, the more important thing for our end is keeping track of what's being spent. cash counts, those kinds of things. But also keeping track of inventory. Inventory is such a pain. You know, you don't, especially during those tournaments, at the end of the day, you could have an inventory report pulled where, okay, we know that we used this today. Let's refill tomorrow morning, and everything's set based on that report instead of, you know, trying to run around the next day.
Looking at everything physically, moving
Yeah.
stuff around.
Yeah.
One thing we do need to talk about or decide with the pool is there's two big brown slides from the previous pool. And I know this has come up several times. The community has requested that we use those. However, the previous pool committee expressed a lot of concern that kids would get cut up from them and scratched because they'd get kind of caught on the slide. And
You
they
looked at
said
them, didn't you?
they weren't,
They didn't look terrible, but.
they didn't like them, I guess, and I don't know I just don't know what to do with that. And
Did the kids, like, did anybody,
So we use them
nobody
to
got
turn.
severely hurt, I think it was just they would get like rashes and scratches and stuff going down the slide. And then,
oh,
How did they hook
I
those
don't
up?
recall
Was there
that,
a-
like, I mean, my kids used them, I don't remember that, but that's what I was told.
Was there a hose hook up on the bottom? How'd they, How'd they get
They
plumbing?
didn't have water, it didn't have water, I don't think, these didn't have water, did they? Does anybody remember?
Yeah, they
I feel
do.
like they had one.
Yeah, 'cause
Brown ones?
The one,
Yeah.
the water wasn't working
Right.
often, so they usually just went with the one.
Yeah, cause the water didn't work in the one.
So
Yeah, they
one of
had
them was like in really good shape and the other one wasn't or something. I don't know, if there's, what does everybody think? Do we install it and just see how it goes?
Carruthers was open to have one out there.
Yeah, and they can install it in the spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, put it on.
Put it up.
I
If we,
think
if we
so.
do one, let's just do the nicer one. The other one from what
Yeah, I don't think
heard
we
was
need to do
kinda
two.
rough shape, so.
But-
I think we should use what we can.
Yeah, and that way we'd have a slide.
Yeah.
I do like that, I hadn't heard that before,
Me
and
either.
a previous pool committee member expressed that concern, that they didn't wanna use it in the new pool when they were pursuing a new pool. That was a long time ago.
I mean, they're
too.
not old.
Right, well, that one, I think one, like, didn't get used very much, or hardly at all before the pool closed, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, they are not old
They're different
slides.
ages, like one was purchased a while back and.
Yeah, but I mean, they're both within like 10 years.
Okay.
So I'm saying they're not old.
So that's something we can do, Justin, when they, eventually we'll have to give them a list of, yes, these are the things we're gonna purchase, and that's something I can do. And then just say, we would like X, Y, and Z installed also, which would be that, and then there were some pool chairs that were in there that we
Yeah.
didn't use, so.
Maybe the surface of them can be buffed a little bit to
Mhm.
smooth them out.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I don't know.
it's
How they-
plastic, I wonder if you.
How they
I
treat
mean, we could
those.
always
I don't know.
ask brothers whether they have something.
It's gotta be
I
fiberglass.
would know if they can they can do
Who's-
the.
can't you
You can-
surface
you
it a
can
little
wax
bit?
it.
Yeah.
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 Who would do that though?
Maybe Crothers would
You
have
get some
in
real
their
speed up
pool
when you get a
place.
good.
Right.
Wax.
Right. Well, and they said they would just put it, I don't have the pool rendering, but they would put it on the south, side where the large slide eventually
By
would
the
go,
lanes.
if we would put one, so on the park side. Kind of adjacent to the high dive, but it would go into where the lanes are.
So
That's where
it'd
they
go
would
into a
plunge
really
in.
deep end?
No,
No.
it would plunge into the lanes,
Straight south of the zero entry.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's the exact same place they would plunge in on the big slide, and so it has to be so many feet from the wall and that they can shoot out far enough, which this one doesn't plunge them out, but there's enough space there for them to be able to go.
But I mean, I'm saying for like a little kid would still be able to use it. I'm not envisioning.
It would be into the like 4.5,
Yeah.
5 feet area. I don't know the exact feet there. But they can't go on it anyway until they're, I think it was, is it 48, 42 or 48 inches, something like that. So I would assume at that age they're swimming. I mean, I know not all of them, but hopefully,
I'm just thinking littler kids were on it.
But it used to
Yeah.
plunge into,
A smaller
Parks,
area.
parks.
it was,
I think so.
City
but there's no,
parks,
like, there's no
SDs,
smaller
that.
area. Like, it's 0 depth and then it's the lanes, so there's not an option, you know what I mean, for just a 3-foot.
Mhm. Okay.
So maybe that's something we need to discuss, is maybe like signage or something that they have to,
Did they give you a phone number?
I mean, they're plunging
I just
into
have my personal-
5
Yeah, we'll
feet.
talk to Carruthers about
Yeah.
that. 'Cause they'll
Yeah.
have all the,
Because it
Best
was into a
practices,
smaller,
0.
because that slide is mostly used by
56,
kids that are
26.
not 5 foot.
Mhm.
I mean, I know I'm sure they're the most second graders, but still,
I've got a lot of stuff.
I'm just saying that like, I feel like it was,
Was
a
it
little-
banned by a lifeguard?
Past years.
there was a lifeguard right next to it.
Information.
But they could still, I'm
Yeah,
sure they were
They
doubling
did,
as,
yeah, they
that was
did
their
kinda,
area, it
yes.
wasn't just they did the slide.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they were
Cause
kinda.
I know, that was the other thing, I wanna make sure it doesn't take up another, it's like you have to have
extra staff.
another lifeguard there,
Yeah.
which it doesn't, so, okay, so I
Speaking
don't,
of lifeguards, we are taking applications, so. As far as I know, 3 or 4 of them have been taken out, I don't think we got any back yet. But we'll be hiring quite a few.
another thing for the pool is we'll have to start talking about, and this might be a discussion with once you hire a head lifeguard, but people have been asking about lessons and when they'll be and how they can sign up and all of that. But that really has to be at the discretion of the head lifeguard because scheduling and
Mhm.
all of that. So I don't think it's something we can really do right now.
No, it's gonna be a while yet.
So, okay, moving on. Nothing else for the pool project for me, so baseball.
The committee met last week, just got some of their input from last year, there really wasn't too many, complaints or anything. Asked them about kind of what they thought, things we could improve, spend money on. Catcher's equipment was one thing, practice balls was another. They also talked about, or we talked about improving our net area and maybe building some pitching mounds and catching things around. We're short on field space, and so right now that net area
Yeah.
is kind of something we're using to take place of the practice. So we've got the hitting net, but if we had pitching mounds and catching mounds right there, plus you got the old softball field, you could really have a whole practice right there.
Yeah.
There's also some makeshift pitching mounds around that Orville did, I think, last year, kind of around the fields that would be nice to have those actually look
We could
very
improve
good,
those.
improve, and
Yeah.
also net so that they don't hit
Are you
people.
talking the ones between,
Just along the fence.
yeah,
Yeah, so, you know, we talked about, and that might be something where I was kinda hoping maybe the, sports management or something would know how to build a nice, you know, mound and catching area or whatever, but that would be a nice little improvement for, like I said, practice fields. Our big net, so there's supposedly about 3 nets down in the park shop or somewhere, but we really need to inventory what we have for nets and then
Yeah.
get rid of what we don't need, you know.
I think of the next, what do you think, Justin, next month or 2, he's gonna be spending some time in that shop and really going through it.
Well, our nets,
Everything is so spread out, I mean, there's stuff in different
yeah,
buildings
and we might not have a good net. I think, I mean, the net
Right.
is relatively new, but we think mice got into it because it's got holes all over it. And so it wasn't even safe last year. You had balls going through there and this and that sort of stuff. So they talked about a new net. Those are about, you know, $1,200. But if we do get a new net, we have to store it someplace that doesn't get rodents, you know, or somehow so that it can't. Because all those holes couldn't have come from anything other than rodents. I mean, because they're not even, you know, we thought about maybe they hit them with a mower or something, but then that'd all be low.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that are up high and stuff like that, so, you know, we don't have a drinking fountain on that. We've prepped for a drinking fountain on that building down there, but if we have money, you know, we could add the drinking fountain, you know, onto that building.
you guys do a walkthrough in the spring with your committee or no?
Not with the baseball committee, with this board
Maybe
usually.
when we do this walk, that we can take a look at some of what's over there. That's April, I think,
Yeah. Or next, or what, next,
either March or April,
that what?
we do the walkthrough.
Oh, yeah,
May.
yeah, yeah.
I think it's May.
No, it wouldn't be that late, I
It
would
was
think,
April
it's
or May.
April.
And it wasn't cold though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
well,
I-
it got dark too.
But that
You
area,
walk over to find that bare area, so, yeah.
that area could be really nice, and it'd be nice to make it, you know, nice. You know, it needs a little bit of TLC is all.
Yep.
Where can the drinking fountain, is that at the concession stand or?
It's prepped for one on the side of the wall, out of the, you know, for the north wall. You had a prepped water over there.
Where the, batting cages are?
No,
No,
it's
I know.
it's that building,
Okay. I'll
just
have
like
to-
if you're on the walking around the cement to the bathrooms, just
Okay.
right
Yeah.
there on that wall.
Okay. That's a good idea.
So is that something that we should add to our list, thinking of the discretionary?
I think we try to find some sort of budget for that softball field with the ag on, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Put something that's realistic right there,
Which is
and
what
then work around the rest, I
Mhm.
guess.
Right. I'm just trying to get in my head, like, all the things that we've kind of said, you know, so that we do have an ongoing list.
Well, you got, I mean, a lot of the stuff on the repairs list, is not real high dollar items either,
Mhm.
so.
Okay.
And those are things we can probably pay without of equipment and maintenance anyway.
Okay.
Other than that, we talked a little bit about tournaments and that sort of stuff, and just any changes that they saw fit and stuff, but I'll get a lot of that to you. Like I said, I used to write a bunch of these emails trying to get all the committee to do these tasks, so I think I should be able to find what I sent and then give it to you, so you kinda laid out all the stuff that needs to be done
Yep.
and kind of the time frame. It's nothing documented necessarily, but it's, a lot of it's there to start, and then we'll just get together and go through it. That's all I got for baseball.
Moving on, anybody else? Softball.
Like coaches and parents reaching out to me about teams, and they're just telling them a little worried about that when the registration's done.
The one other thing I guess that came up in baseball, I think it's come up in T-ball, and I guess come up in softball,
I don't think you can go back.
well, they really like, and this is actually probably even something that is for you. I'm even gonna bring back your idea.
I couldn't
You're
add
bringing-
something to the agenda.
I'm not coming, I'm not adding, it's in softball.
So actually, I didn't move on to softball, and technically I'm,
Okay, technically,
Sorry, so
they
go
wouldn't
ahead.
mind having the shirts different colors.
okay.
That was brought up again, that,
Yep.
and what we talked about a little bit is maybe it could be done for sevens and eights, baseball and softball. Cause if you just, we always usually have about 4 teams, and so if we established 4 colors and just ordered quite a bit of that, then you could filter through and you wouldn't lose them, cause next year they'd be the same thing, you know, other inventory. T-ball would be too tough, cause there's like 14, 15 teams and
Not enough colors.
not enough colors. and-
T-ball's hard, oh, sorry, go ahead, they just,
But we talked about getting a
They
set of,
add
like a set of vests or something kinda nice that when there's somebody's batting at T-ball,
We have them already, you can just use the soccer ones.
yeah, something they
Cause
can just.
then you can keep them, cause they're in my garage.
Awesome.
And so, like, you can, once soccer is done, then you can hand out the pennies for T-ball.
If they could just, some coaches don't care, but if other
Mhm.
coaches do, they can put it on the kid that's hitting.
Yeah,
That way you can tell who he is.
and we have multiple of those colors and lots of them, so.
Alrighty.
Mhm. So we already have that done.
Okay.
are we all finished with baseball?
Yeah. Yep, we're done.
Okay, we can
Wait.
move on to, oh, seriously? We move on to agenda item E, now softball, take it away,
Just waiting for registration to be done. Hopefully we have numbers like we did last year.
waiting like 3 more weeks.
Couple coaches told me they don't wanna coach. So that kinda sucks, cause we're always short on coaches, but we'll find someone like we found you last year, so someone will do it.
What ages are,
10.
who do we have in that
They,
group that could potentially
well, they have,
coach?
you know, in the registration, there's a spot that says, are you willing to coach? So hopefully there's some
Yeah.
people that,
Yeah.
Right.
I haven't ran any reports yet, I'm just curious if you know if there's anybody in that group that you think might be interested.
Like last year, like we had one team that had 3 parents to volunteer, and the other 2 teams had 0. And the way we broke it out by age, that's just, it was like literally those 3 parents, their kids were, birthdays were in the same month. But the other parents were pretty willing to step up and do it, and this year, just one of them just told me they're not gonna do it. Think about going and playing T if they have to coach. I was like, just, but you don't wanna coach, we'll find a different coach.
they ain't
If
doing
not-
that, they're gonna go to a different
Do you
town.
think we're gonna make them coach?
Yeah, well, I kinda did last year.
Yeah.
I knew they would say yes. I was like, we just won't do that to you again this year. Brittany can coach more than one team.
I'm not coaching 10U when my child is not in 10U. I have a boy in 10U, but I'm not coaching baseball.
He'll be a level in that time. Oh,
He will be, yeah, but he falls
oh, he
in
falls back.
10U, yeah.
Okay.
One thing, can you put on the list to get a hold of
What's that?
Denise? Last year,
I
there
mean,
were
right,
people
thank
that
you.
paid for sponsorships of the website and stuff like that,
I don't mind
and she has that list.
coaching.
At some point, I think she
just
gave it to me too, but if you can find out, I wanna try to get them up on the website.
Did you say I have the list?
Okay.
No, some
Oh,
people
I'm
paid
like,
last
I
year.
don't have a list.
Some people paid, and she
Oh.
kinda gave me
Denise.
she would know who paid the $100 or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and then we can,
Stuck in my speeder.
I just don't want to get this.
yeah,
Just anymore.
I think I know, Lotman did too, who's Farmer Bucket, but I don't know if he just did it as himself or Farmer Bucket, but whatever, we wanna make sure we don't forget them to be,
You're the only one on there right now, Foss,
what,
sponsor on the website.
I know, that's what, but I mean, I'll get you Olson and
And I know
Hamish
there's more, I just was,
Best Tile and stuff like that, but that's where this other list comes from too, there's people that
Yeah.
paid last year that
right,
that
that we could put them on.
we need them to have them on there,
Yeah, and there's a lot of places on there where you can put them and it'll like cycle through,
okay,
in several spots, so, kind of like a running cycle on different pages, but I just wanted to see how it worked, and so I just went to your website and took your logo from there and put it on there. I mean, you've done enough, I mean,
well, yeah, I just
Supported
wanna get other
every
people on
year,
there, so it's
so-
not me.
right, right, I know, I agree. You were just kind of the trial and error, so
Yeah.
if anybody would question.
Well, and if, you know, Hanish and Bruce Olson, I know that for sure, and Best
Yeah.
Tile,
And Hanish has a new logo, so if we, I don't know.
maybe get hold of Gina and get it or something.
Well, I have it for wrestling, so I can, it's the same one.
Did you hear anything back from Excel?
No. They're not wild about the first idea I had for them, so I was hoping they'd be more wild about this. Their grant doesn't open until later in the year. I was just writing, I had a week of time to basically write a bunch of grants, so we just sat down and wrote a bunch that week. And that's one of them. I think there's another softball one too, so. If we decide eventually we wanna do something, with that field, something bigger, there are some grants out there that we can use. Excel's got a good one that we can easily access. And, they're actually usually looking for people to apply for that one, so.
Build something bigger for
Softball field,
specific.
like changing the field,
Is that something we can still apply for this year?
yeah, I don't think it opens until like June or something. It would be for next year's money, not for this year. They disperse it like November or something of this year.
And which ones do we miss out on in the fall?
What was that big one? Wellmark is one of them, that we wanna make sure we see next spring, or this fall, I should say.
Is that lady from August?
What was the other one that we had? There's like a clear cut, yeah, we should do this.
I don't know, but,
Was it Wellmark?
Mid-American
I thought it was
and,
Sanford there.
Sarah, yeah, Sanford, Legends? Sanford Legends,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Is that the one? I think that was it.
Mid-American and BNSF both have $10,000 grants. I applied for both of those and got them both for the pool, and so I wonder if in future years we couldn't apply for it for Park and Rec, for fields and stuff. It's
Yeah.
all about their presence in the community, especially the railroad. They wanna have a better presence in communities than just being the railroad.
Quit laying on that horn as they come through.
What's that?
Quit laying on the horn as they come through.
What's really ironic about that?
But they donated to the pool, so we like them,
Yeah.
regardless of the horn.
I have been
They
trying to
come
find
through.
out for 3 months now if they're gonna work on the railroad crossings in town this year or not.
They never contacted me. I applied for the grant, and I didn't hear anything for like 6 months, and then all of a sudden we get this check. So, I don't know how you contact.
So they're not high maintenance. They're no maintenance.
Right.
Yeah.
One other thing to add, I'm
Mm.
just gonna say it's in
Mm.
softball. So when people go to
You can make a
pay,
motion to adjourn, it's not debatable.
when
Oh, yeah.
people, to say really fast, when people go to pay for softball or other things, since this is under softball, there's nothing in there that says if you are unable to pay,
Mhm.
do we need to add something like that? And I don't, how should we word it? And do I just tell them if you feel that you are unable to pay recreation fees,
Contact.
please contact City
Yep.
Hall? Just
Yeah,
add that on that main page.
there's, Justin, let's talk with Denise tomorrow about the United Way program that we signed up with for scholarships.
Do you
So we
feel
should be
comfortable
aware.
adding that to that first page of, on the registration one?
Yep.
It's just that there's an edit button on
Yeah.
the first page, okay.
Well, I think they apply with United Way, we don't even have to do the
But you don't even have to, we wouldn't even have to say all that, we could just say if you,
contact City Hall.
yeah,
Yep.
if you're having trouble, or you don't feel like you can.
Yep.
Make this payment.
There is still a desire from the Lions Club to do something about that too.
I don't know how.
They understand that it's not going to happen right away, so they're clear on that.
The Lions Club is interested in sponsoring kids through rec, and that's a really, really good idea, but who organizes it and executes it and decides who gets what, and do we organize it, did they, and they kinda wanted it to be us. And so what would that look like? Do people apply? Do they have to show bank statements? And that's just a lot of extra, I mean, it's a really great idea, and they wanna do something really nice.
Is it income based or is it just one out of
It's
the program?
nothing,
Cause maybe they could sponsor a tournament or do something and
Yeah.
have a tournament.
It really sounded to me like they wanna do income-based, either
They
pool
wanted-
passes or swimming
yes.
lessons.
Yeah.
they wanted to get kids who can't afford it, swimming
Yep.
lessons or pool passes or.
And we
softball or
we
baseball.
can make that happen, but there's a lot of stuff that has to be put in place first, so.
It almost has to be a program like the United Way, but I think it was just
Yeah,
a lot for,
I mean, I think we can put in some stipulations as to what they, you know,
well,
how to qualify or
yeah,
whatever.
and,
yeah.
you know, we talked about doing free, if you're eligible for free and reduced, you know,
Yes.
that's usually a
That
pretty
was a
good
lot of
marker.
things.
Right,
you
so
can
that
look at
brings
stuff to that.
a lot of kids, and then who makes that decision, and how many applicants would we get, and is that gonna be a lot of additional time for?
Yep.
I mean, and you could,
People.
honestly just put it easily, if they wanna do it this year, thinking about like pool or
Mhm.
swimming lessons or whatever. I mean, I don't know how much money they wanna give, but say they only wanna give like $500, then you just say the first 20 kids that apply for the whatever, you're eligible for up to $50 or $70 per kid, which would get them like either into baseball or softball or potentially swimming lessons, right? And so that'd be only, what, 10 kids, not even 10 kids, so it's the first 10,
Not even-
it's the first 10 kids that apply, and that's it, you know, and then you're done. And I mean, like, at least it's offered and we're able to do it right away, cause my fear is that we'll be like, oh, we can't, you know, we can't do it, and we'll end up not doing it at all, and then
Yeah.
they'll, you know, so I mean, like, if you just cut it off at the first 10 kids, at least those 10 kids got it. It's like that saying, which, like the things that you throw back into the sea, you know what I mean? You
I
save
don't,
that one,
but I
anyhow,
think
it's a starfish.
It's a good analogy.
You save that one. So I mean, like, at least it's, those 10 kids would have the opportunity. Do we know how much they wanna give?
I think it was around 200 or so,
Total?
and I think.
That
it's
could
gonna be
make some impact on
one
swimming
time.
lessons, but
Right.
not a whole lot else.
Or you could just do a reduced fee then,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
I mean,
Well,
that's pretty easy too.
$200, couldn't you do wouldn't that be about 4 scholarships?
$50.
Where couldn't you just open up a period and they can write an essay?
See, and so this is where it comes back to is,
The
Having
little.
a
just,
program.
for example, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna use an example, for Lennox wrestling, we do a scholarship program, and so we use donations and fundraising throughout the year, and the seniors write an essay, and then we determine as a board who gets that money.
Yeah.
Rather than me giving a chunk of money to the high school wrestling coach and saying, you divvy this up, you take the essays and you decide, we do that as an entity. And I don't wanna tell the Lions Club, you need to do this, but it is an extra whole program we would have to basically.
But that's for a senior in high school, you know, that's a typical thing for a scholarship, to
Yeah.
have to write, you know,
Right.
stuff. For little kids, it's just like, you know, here's your
It's
money,
just
just
more-
like free or reduced.
You know,
lunches.
who decides the policies
Mhm.
behind it and what do they have to give us and who gets to have it. It's just, there's more, somebody has to work on it,
They've
you
got
know.
to put some
For
sort of.
$200 I
stipulation.
wouldn't get too elaborate.
Yeah, that's what I'm
So
saying.
that's where we
That's kind of-
stopped.
And that was my,
That's what I'm saying.
That's where we stopped because the funding for that, for a full-time employee to
Well, that's
work
why I
on
decided
it.
to go back to Tina's. and
That's
say
why I'm just
40
saying, like,
bucks
give
or
40
30
bucks
for
to
the
somebody,
first,
that's it,
whatever.
to the first 4 kids
20
that
bucks for the
apply.
first 10, right? 'Cause
You
that's
know?
$200.
And say if you're
It's a-
free and reduced,
Right.
whatever, and it's
Be
the
done.
first
But you're
4,
still
you're
Yeah,
creating
done.
even-
a program.
yeah, even to get that off the ground, part of my concern is even to get that off the ground, something that simple, you're gonna need at least $200 a labor and
Right,
more time than it's worth putting
Right.
together.
right.
So
It's a really good idea.
we'd be better off
It's
just
Why
giving
is
it
that,
to people.
why, I'm struggling, why is
They
that?
just, that's really
Too
where
much
their
labor?
heart is, they want to,
No,
well,
no, I know, why is it? too
We just
much
gotta
labor?
sway their heart to something else.
Let's assume that it's gonna take,
Tell them to take applications.
yeah, so that kinda is what I'd like to do. In order to get any program up and going, we've gotta put staff time towards it financially. You know, it depends on what staff it is, obviously, and how much it's going to cost, but we threw $200 in labor in 2 hours putting this together,
Okay.
with Justin and me and Denise put together.
and then like what account does that money go into and,
I don't think.
there's just a lot that.
There's a lot of
goes into it.
logistics that go into the
We just
background.
convince them to give $200 to something else.
So that's where we ended, is, you know, can you just donate this and we'll utilize it for our,
Yeah.
either the pool or park programs.
Right.
And it's not like they're saying this is the only thing we're going to give to you, that wasn't.
No,
that
it
wasn't
just,
us
that's
trying
what they
to-
wanted to help with, they just wanted to help with people that didn't have the funding
Yeah.
for that. And I think it's a great thing, I thought, gosh, if this got up and running and somebody took control of it and we had, where you could add to that every year, different companies or whatever, that would be wonderful, but then it would have to be city run. So if the Lions Club did they do their own for, when I was there asking basically for donations, they were talking about people applying for hearing aids, to sponsor hearing aids. And then they determine as a group, yes, we're gonna pay for this one, no, we're not for that, or whatever. And so, that's kinda where I felt that it should be their committee,
Yeah.
I guess. Anyway, not
Well,
something,
if you put that on the website, then the city will know exactly how many people asked.
right, and then,
we'll see if the
Well,
need is in our community.
And maybe we could just tell like,
'Cause most
okay,
of the
we've
time-
got these 4 kids.
We've done
There
it
you
kind of in
go.
the
That's
past,
right. If
you
there's
know,
only
getting
like
charged them or
4,
whatever,
here
but
you
then they
go.
show up the next game with a $200 bat. You
Yeah.
know, you're like, wait, I thought you couldn't afford, you got brand new glove, brand new bat. But either way, it's there to help.
Yeah, it's all
Right.
really good intentions.
So motion to adjourn this bad
I
boy.
just wanna keep talking.
I know you.
Second, I'm very passionate.
I'm so glad Clint's.
It's about
That was
all-
our second.
all the
Second your
parts
motion.
of-
Right.
I did motion, oh, you did, I can't, it doesn't have to be me, does it?
Can't be you,
No.
Can't be you, it has to be somebody else.
but we do have to vote on it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. I'm going. It was a long day, the last one. Last one. Another meeting after the meeting. Wait, usually go.
What was the other thing you wanted?
Yeah,
Okay,
everybody
great.
contributed and everybody arrived as a team and I was very impressed.
Yes, okay, so are you taking the money for that, or you took the money for that?
So, like, are you talking, like physically took the money or?
Yes.
So Joanne took the money